Dylan Raiola went out in the spring game this past Saturday and got buckets. As we just talked about, 16 for 22, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns. The 1 interception was off his wide receiver's hands. I mean, it's hard to fault the guy too much for that. He's a ceiling changer for Nebraska. He is. And Nebraska, they went 5-7 last year, and you've been sold optimism for the better part of the last probably 2 or 3 years if you're a Nebraska fan. Hey, this is the year make a bowl game. Hey, this is the year of the roster. You lost so many close games last year. That won't happen again. And then you lose 5 one-score games in 2023. I'm not here to talk about the one-score games as much. We're going to talk about them for sure, but I want us to really hone in on why Dylan Raiola changes the game for Nebraska in 2024. We'll do that right now, but make sure you're subscribed. Nebraska fans, y'all been good to us, man. Y'all been great to us, and we appreciate you for that. If you're just now finding this show, Nebraska fan, Virginia Tech fan, Jacksonville State fan, whoever you're a fan of, we talk college football. We talk college football all year long. So subscribe here to stay up with all of it. Also follow me on the socials at JD Piquel on Twitter and on Instagram. We post prompts all the time on there that we then incorporate into the show and incorporate y'all's responses into the show. So as I was saying, man, Dylan Raiola, pretty clearly the guy. To quote Sean Callahan, we know where it's going. It's a matter of how we get there. Dylan Raiola, our eyes all work just fine. He's going to be QB1 when you open up for games that really matter. Again, Nebraska fans, you're scared to be optimistic. You're scared to trust again. I understand. The heart's been broke so many times you don't know what to believe. Little Rod Wave syndrome going on for our folks out there in Lincoln. Dylan Raiola, I think, is the equivalent of the flavor packet to the ramen noodles to this Nebraska roster. Like, you can kind of take it or leave it. You see some solid nutritional value with this roster. A lot of returning production, 78% plus both back on offense and defense from last year's team that played in a lot of close games. Defense that allowed 18 points a game. But you add in Dylan Raiola, and I think the big thing with him is he is the kind of player that can potentially shorten or at best bridge the roster talent gap that you might have with some of these other teams in your conference. Like Nebraska, let's just call a spade here. They're not going to have more dudes than Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon. It is what it is. But when you have Dylan Raiola, that might be your equalizer. And I'm not saying he's going to put the team on his back and just will you to a victory over some of the best teams in your conference, but I am saying he changes the way that those games can flow. For example, when you play against some of those teams, they might have a superior pass rush. They might get to Dylan Raiola a little bit more quickly than you would like them to. But the thing with Dylan Raiola, the off-platform stuff, right? He doesn't have to be set to throw. We saw him in multiple instances in that spring game be able to throw the football without his feet set. That's an equalizer. The pass rush is superior. He's able to negate that pass rush by getting rid of the ball quickly off-platform. Or maybe that coverage is just, they're locked in. They're locked in and they're able to kind of keep a pretty good coverage throughout the course of a Saturday on your wide receiving core. They're superior. That's the matchup that they have. However, Dylan Raiola, with his accuracy, with his RPMs he puts on the football, he's able to maybe fit some passes in there that previous quarterbacks at Nebraska weren't able to. And it sounds like I'm being hyperbolic here. I'm just saying situationally, Dylan Raiola is going to help close the gap or bridge the gap for you when you play those teams. I'm not saying you beat them. I'm not saying they go win the Big Ten. But I am saying that with Dylan Raiola, he totally changes the ceiling of what Nebraska can be in 2024. Because I think the frustration for Nebraska fans is you look at 2023 and you had a tremendous governor on your football team. Like you had a defense that was, I think, one of the best in the country, and nobody's talking about them because of their record last year. They went 5-7, but they kept teams to 18 points a game. They kept teams to 4 yards of play. Not a carry, not a pass, 4 yards of play. That's top 5 in the country. And they bring back, again, 78% of that production from last season. But you weren't able to see those strengths and reap the rewards of those, benefits because the offense was just, let's be real, it was abysmal. They scored 18 points a game. They completed 52% of their passes. They had 6 yards of pass, good for one of the worst in the country. 6% of the passes last year for Nebraska were interceptions. 6% interception rate. That's 132nd in the country. Doesn't matter how good your defense is if your offense can't do anything to help you. That was Nebraska routinely last year. And I told you I wasn't going to harp on the one-score losses, but let's just unpack those a little bit. 5 one-score losses. All 5 of those games failed to score 20 points. In 4 of those games, you had a quarterback account for at least 2 turnovers. Whether it be a fumble or interception, at least 2 turnovers. So the way that I'm looking at this thing, with how good that defense is supposed to be in 2024, if Dylan Raiola is just solid, if he's just steady, like let's throw a stat line out there just to kind of have this mental exercise. Let's say he throws for 20 touchdowns and 5 picks. How good is Nebraska? Because last year, again, your best touchdown interception ratio was 7 touchdowns, 7 picks. Nobody had a better ratio than that. If you're 20-5, Nebraska's winning 6 games, 7 games, depending on how good that defense is and depending on how much Dylan Raiola elevates in certain situations. How good is Nebraska next year? Because at the most important position on your team, the quarterback, you now upgrade. There's no way around it. You upgrade from a talent level, and I think overall from the floor level, he is going to be a better overall piece for you than what you've had there previously. And is there going to be growing pains? Absolutely. There may very well be some freshman games for Dylan Raiola where he's seeing ghosts, the game's too fast, he's making poor decisions. Like that might be a game, but I'm telling you right now, the long-term trajectory of 2024 for Dylan Raiola is overall a superior net positive to what last year was. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. His ceiling is different. What he can be at Nebraska is different. And as a result of that, the ceiling for Nebraska in 2024 is vastly different as well. Because last year they ran for 175 yards a game offensively. If they have that to go with their freshman quarterback this upcoming season, and they can support him in that way, and they equip him with a solid defense to go with that and say, hey, Dylan Raiola, you don't need to go win the game for us. Just play within yourself, play within this scheme, make your layups. We're going to win football games. That's something different they've had in a long, long time, and I think that would give Nebraska their best season since 2016. So, break out the hopium. If you're a Nebraska fan, I think that this is the year they make a bowl game. I've said that many times, and I think Dylan Raiola is a massive reason as to why that is possible and why that will happen in 2024. Hey, y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.